Drop the banners. He wants awe. We'll give him analysis. Commander Wren's voice cut through the control deck of Earth's orbital station like a scalpel. No flourish, no applause, just calculation beneath the calm. Around him, screens flickered with live telemetry, wind patterns shifting over the Pacific, satellites realigning to frame the incoming alien vessel, diplomatic feeds streaming council protocol in dozens of languages. A low chime marked the ship's deceleration. It descended over the Atlantic corridor, a cathedral of silver and pale obsidian slicing through Earth's atmosphere without turbulence. It didn't so much fly as displace the sky around it. Wren leaned forward, gloved hand tightening around the edge of the console. Time on pad? 2 minutes, Commander, replied Specialist Alvin, his voice low, eyes scanning a tactical heads-up overlay. The docking platform outside shimmered under floodlights. Steel blue plates hummed as magnetic grips adjusted automatically. Military personnel formed 2 discrete lines, unarmed but uniformed in ceremonial black with polished shoulder crests. Beside them, a diplomatic envoy stood still, a ribbon of human elegance in silence. The alien ship settled with surgical grace. No sound, no vibration. Just a final movement, like the closing of an eye. Wren stepped into the corridor, adjusting the collar of his formal uniform. His boots clicked once against the polished floor, and then ceased, absorbed by the engineered grip of composite panels beneath his feet. As he walked, the scent of sterilized polymers met a whisper of ozone-treated air, standard sanitization protocol after off-world approach. It smelled clean in a way that denied all life. Keep expressions neutral, Wren said without turning. Don't reflect, absorb. The shuttle's ramp descended. A brief shimmer marked the dissolution of an energy veil. Sorvek emerged. He moved as if carved from the idea of nobility itself. 4 elongated limbs bent with coiling grace, each step measured in time with an invisible rhythm. His skin, a muted obsidian blue, reflected the platform lights with an oil-slick shimmer. Behind him, 2 guards followed with segmented armor and elongated staff weapons that never lowered, even in ceremony. No one on Earth had ever seen a Daryon in person. And yet Wren didn't blink. He observed. Sorvek's voice, filtered through a linguistic module embedded at his throat, had a cadence that hovered between melodic and clinical. Representatives of soul origin, I bring the greetings of the Galactic Council and of Daryon Prime. Your world has drawn our interest. Wren stepped forward without hesitation. Commander Wren, strategic liaison to Earth's diplomatic division. A beat of silence. Then Sorvek offered a shallow bow, unusual for his species. Calculated, measured, not out of respect, but to gauge the response. Wren didn't bow, he simply said, You requested audience. We obliged. I come with terms of peace, Sorvek replied, eyes studying every face on the landing pad, as if searching for the thread of nervousness he expected. We're not at war, Wren said, letting the words hang. Sorvek gestured. A holographic symbol flickered in the air, deep crimson with a central spiral. The Council has designated your species as developmental and unaligned. As such, we offer protected species status under Galactic Charter subsection 12. Wren's brow lifted, but his tone remained flat. Define protection. You will maintain local autonomy, but your expansion beyond orbital boundaries will be subject to Council oversight. Your technological progress will be reviewed quarterly. Resource exploitation, especially off-planet, will require authorization. Guardianship, then, Wren said. Draped in bureaucracy. Sorvek tilted his head slightly. It is for your safety. Wren's response came as quietly as it came decisively. We do not seek guardians. We seek understanding. The words drew a pause in the wind, or so it felt. Sorvek's second guard shifted. Subtle, almost imperceptible. Sorvek himself maintained the composure of a diplomat trained for centuries, but something in his third eye, positioned like a shadow behind his primary gaze, blinked once. Wren noticed. You decline an offer extended by over 300 civilizations, Sorvek said, no longer as musical. We appreciate the Council's interest, Wren answered, but we build our foundations ourselves. You're welcome to observe. Sorvek nodded. His bow this time lacked even the earlier performative courtesy. then observe we shall. The next 3 days unfolded as scripted performances. Human cities, preserved rainforests, neural labs and propulsion centers were displayed with polished pride. Sorvek walked through them as though admiring quaint antiques. At a fusion research center in Nairobi, he paused before a core encased in reinforced crystal. You stabilize plasma with brute containment fields. It works, said Ren, reliably. Sorvek's laughter was neither mocking nor sincere. It hovered between derision and disbelief. Back in orbit, Earth's analysts broke down every movement, every inflection, every word from the delegation. Facial recognition flagged 37 micro-expressions from Sorvek that matched recorded patterns of condescension from past council dealings. The report was labeled, "Cautious exploitation predicted." That night, Ren stood in the observation dome above Earth's equatorial belt. Below, the dark curvature of the planet shimmered with coastlines outlined by city lights, like veins pulsing through a sleeping body. Behind him, his secure comms lit up. Encrypted. Council seal embedded, he answered. Sorvek's face appeared, projected from a refined laser beam display, crisp, blood blue resolution. His voice, now stripped of diplomatic varnish, filled the chamber. We gave you a choice. You opted for pride. Ren didn't speak. Our revised terms are as follows, Sorvek continued. 30% of your water reserves, with direct siphoning rights. 50% mining access to your moon. Complete orbital authority delegated to council-appointed infrastructure. And if we decline? Ren asked quietly. Sorvek's expression shifted into something too alien for human emotion, but not too alien to understand. Declining would be unwise. You have 30 planetary rotations to comply. The screen went black. Ren stood motionless. Below, Earth turned. He raised his wrist and opened a command channel. Scramble defense subcommittees. I want Dr. Harvin briefed by morning. Full sensor silence, civil channels unimpacted. Understood, Commander, came the voice on the other end. He closed the line and walked back to the edge of the observation dome. The stars outside no longer twinkled with innocence. They watched. Then he spoke, not for a log, not for an audience, but to the black that had just blinked at him. Then we prepare, quietly. Scramble doesn't mean chaos, Ren said flatly. It means calculated speed. His words echoed through the subterranean operations deck beneath Geneva's defense citadel, where the real decisions were forged. Overhead, banks of heads-up displays shimmered in vertical arrays, pulsing with the orbits of satellites, troop repositioning, and anomalous readings from deep space beacons. Each node blinked in sync with an unspoken urgency. 3 weeks, he continued, eyes scanning the warboard like it might twitch back at him. Not a day more, not a second wasted. Around the table sat 12 specialists, engineers, military tacticians, diplomats, and scientists, each chosen not for their politics, but for their unwillingness to blink under pressure. None of them spoke until Ren finished. Then, Dr. Harvin stood. The physicist looked more like a monk than a researcher, loose gray robes, thin features, and eyes too focused to be tired. Project Aegis is no longer theory, Harvin said, activating the plasma filament array behind him. The visual flared, a grid of quantum fields mapped around Earth, their curvature represented by lattice distortions that twisted light itself into artificial gravity contours. You're saying it works? Asked General Rourke, voice low but sharp. I'm saying it worked last week. A test probe fired an energy burst at the Mars relay array. The beam reversed course midstream, spiraled back, and vaporized its own source. Casualties? Another officer asked. Only the probe, no crew, Harvin replied. But that test was at 4% strength. Scaled up, this field can reshape the rules of engagement. Ren stepped closer, studying the shifting light matrix. Deployable, if we cloak the emission nodes beneath satellite shells. Yes, Harvin replied. It'll look like communication infrastructure to anyone scanning. Good, Ren said. Then we bury the sword under a handshake. Operation Blackwell was greenlit before the room emptied. Orders flashed across encrypted channels. Orbiting cranes began slotting decoy payloads into place, while real Aegis arrays were hidden in magnetically neutral housings. Engineers in the Kuiper Belt diverted signal bandwidth to fabricate synthetic data loops, streams of made-up broadcasts, falsified heat signatures, and disinformation bursts designed to look just convincing enough to be ignored. On the surface, Earth's space agency announced a global communications initiative. Public broadcasts praised diplomatic breakthroughs and unprecedented cooperation with the Council. News anchors smiled, markets rose, none of them knew the truth. Within the Council chambers, Earth's ambassadors maintained a mask of optimistic civility. Behind closed doors, linguists dissected Sorvek's phrasing, hunting for inconsistencies. One phrase stood out: "Your world has drawn our interest, not respect, not recognition, just interest." Predators said the same before circling prey. At Jupiter's edge, a squadron of micro-jump vessels began slow maneuvering drills. Their engines pulsed only once every 5 hours, just enough to maintain position, not enough to be traced. Each ship bore no transponder. Each was equipped with a disruptive pulse array designed not to kill, but to confuse. Their only standing order: remain silent, remain still, remain sharp. On board the Obsidian Arch, Earth's forward operations ship, hidden in Ganymede's shadow, Commander Wren reviewed deployment logs. Dim lights rimmed the bridge's edge, casting long, deliberate shadows across the floor. Officers worked in quiet coordination, each one immersed in their task. The only sound was the faint click of boots on polymer and the whisper of fingertips on kinetic-responsive glass. Update from Blackwell stations, Lieutenant Karn reported. All Aegis arrays in Lagrange positions are functional. Obfuscation layers engaged. Wren looked up from his datapad. Any probes from Darien? One yesterday. We fed it a transmission loop from 2 years ago. Added a glitch to make it look unintentional. Good. Always hide the truth behind a mistake. He closed the pad and stood. The deck beneath him vibrated subtly, not from thrust, but from the ship's artificial grav stabilizers adjusting to orbital drift. Earth hung below like a glowing shield. Beautiful, fragile, worth deceiving the galaxy for. Later, in a compartment repurposed as a command sanctuary, Harvin met him again. The physicist carried a portable node with a pulsing crimson core, a miniaturized Aegis emulator. "This is the prototype that turned the Mars probe back," Harvin nodded. "We bent the photon stream 35 degrees, enough to redirect without destabilizing containment. And in full deployment, redirect, disorient, disable, no explosions, no glory, just outcomes." Wren watched the swirling light within the core, as if reading something not visible to anyone else. "We're not building weapons," he said at last. "We're removing theirs." He turned toward the viewport. Stars drifted by like secrets. In another council session, Earth's envoy raised procedural concerns about threats made by Sorvek during private comms. The council deferred. "Investigative protocol requires review," they claimed. "Let the standard cycle elapse." In other words, stall. Wren knew the pattern. Bureaucracies diluted danger through delay. By the time reports were filed, cities could burn. So Earth moved silently. They trained pilots in modular stealth craft, sent encrypted pulses through wormhole beacons, tested countermeasures without drawing notice. Meanwhile, Sorvek's fleet repositioned near the edge of Council-regulated space, not officially advancing, not officially retreating, just drifting, like a spear waiting to be thrown. At the 3-day mark before Sorvek's deadline, Earth's long-range sensors caught gravitational fluctuations beyond Neptune. Not warships yet, but graviton lensing signatures, energy flux that didn't belong. Wren stood on the Obsidian Arch's observation platform as the data streamed in. Ice rings shimmered faintly below. Uranus cast a dull reflection against the black. He didn't blink. "Send a non-verbal alert to all Blackwell units," he said. "Phrase it as telemetry confirmation." Karn hesitated. "That won't notify them directly. They'll understand. That's why we picked them." Wren turned and walked to the warboard, tapped one of the floating nodes with a flick of his glove. The node split into 5 tactical overlays, one for Aegis, one for orbital cloaks, one for fallback defense, one for micro-jump engagement, one for council optics. Because this wasn't just war, it was theater, and someone had to own the script. "We can't match their firepower," he said, almost to himself, "so we won't fight on their terms." He didn't need applause, just readiness. As Earth slept beneath its weather domes and filtered skies, its defenders didn't rest. They prepared a silence so dense it could trap thunder. 3 days remained, not for fear, for shaping the first real statement Earth would ever make to the stars, not through declarations, but through what would come when they said nothing, and still dismantled everything. Darien signatures just breached heliopause. They're not waiting for the clock. The voice came from Lieutenant Karn, seated beneath a tiered web of heads-up feeds, his fingertips twitching across a control surface that projected navigation glyphs onto the plasma lattice beside him. His words didn't crack with fear, only confirmation. The inevitability they'd all prepared for had arrived. Commander Wren didn't flinch, logged their angle of entry, cross-reference with our decoy broadcast spread. I want to know exactly what they think they're seeing. He moved across the command floor of Obsidian Arch, with the restraint of a man weighing a storm that hadn't touched ground yet. His boots met composite flooring, layered with shock dampeners. No echo, no sound to give away motion. All around him, operators shifted in concert, syncing data across stations without chatter. In orbit above Europa's ice-crusted horizon, Obsidian Arch remained cloaked, its emissions indistinguishable from planetary aurora. Far below, Earth spun unaware. Cities breathed. Oceans stirred with moonlight. Humanity moved through its day, blind to the threat closing in. A field technician updated from the rear station. Aegis arrays at 72%. Charging arc stable. No phase drift. Good. Keep it below visibility thresholds, Wren replied. If they spot a spike, they'll adapt. He turned toward the forward visual bay, where the Darien fleet had begun its silent burn toward the inner system. 4 vessels, angular, dark as burnt stone, with pronged hulls built to intimidate more than conceal. Each ship housed weapons arrays capable of boiling a continent. Yet none of their firepower mattered, if Earth held its silence. Inside public infrastructure nodes back home, news anchors smiled over morning weather. No one mentioned starships, no alerts, no flags raised. Even satellite feeds had been overwritten with pre-programmed loops. Civilians weren't lied to, they were simply left in their rhythm. Back on the Obsidian Arch, Commander Wren stared into the angular contours of Sorvek's lead cruiser as it crept past Mars orbit. Heads-up spectrography showed minimal communication from the enemy. Their formation remained tight, suggesting confidence. No attempt at subterfuge, no scanning sweeps beyond casual range. They believed they were invisible to Earth's detection network. How long until they're within targeting distance? Wren asked without turning. 6 hours, Karn responded. That's assuming they maintain current velocity. They won't slow, Wren said. Not unless they're warned, which they won't be. Down in subterranean command hubs on Earth, code flickered across intelligence relays. Civilian traffic was rerouted through harmless orbital backbones. No signals were allowed to intersect Darien trajectories. Any object launched during this phase was disguised as commercial freight. At Lagrange Point 3, Blackwell Node 8 came online. Its operator, a linguist-turned-stealth navigator named Hanari, watched the activation curve stabilize. Node 8 to ops, cloak at full depth, awaiting standby trigger. Confirmed, came the reply. Hold position. No emission until first contact. Micro-jump vessels beyond Titan's orbit powered down engines. Their hulls blended into gravitational static from nearby planetary fields. Each pilot sat in darkness, eyes adjusting to dim displays fed by passive sensors. No one spoke. They were not told when they'd engage, only that they would know when. Aboard Sorvek's flagship Veyris, his second-in-command, Commander Kreven, reviewed Earth's orbital grid. No active weapons detected. Minimal satellite traffic. If they've built defenses, they're buried, he said, a claw tapping against his console's data reel. Sorvek loomed above the display. His voice was low, even shaped to contain menace without performance. They still believe negotiation is possible. That makes them manageable. Kreven's eye ridges flexed. Shall we send a warning burst? No, Sorvek replied. Let them make the first call. When none comes, they'll panic. Panic leads to concession. Behind his words, however, he felt something. Not hesitation, but an itch he couldn't source, a variable outside his prediction engine. Earth's envoy had spoken with the tone of someone who didn't bluff. That tone lingered like unshed thunder in the skull. Still, logic prevailed. Sorvek had subjugated 4 systems through similar standoffs. Earth's orbitals were underwhelming. Their satellites relied on spectrum channels centuries outdated. Their moon installations were modest. Their silence only confirmed their fear. On board the Obsidian Arch, Ren received the latest pathing data from Darien cruisers. Their acceleration matched a conflict entry profile. They've crossed Mars watch space. Planetary shields have gone quiet, Karn said. We're the only ones still seeing them. Good, Ren murmured. Keep it that way. He moved into the viewport corridor, an arc of clear material designed for high-rank command viewing. No one else followed. Below, Earth hung suspended in its slow rotation. Even from here, weather systems could be traced like brushstrokes over blue canvas. Cities gleamed like veins beneath the dusk line. Everything continues, he whispered, more to the air than to any listener. They're planting gardens, singing to their children, sending ships to monitor coral recovery. They won't know how close it came. A small alert ticked onto his sleeve display. Valorous had reduced its thrust, turning slightly. Ren understood. They're shifting to strike trajectory, he said aloud. No declaration, just final alignment. Back on Darian's bridge, Kreven watched a heat flare from a lunar drone burn. They're still launching civilian assets, he noted. Good, Sorvek replied. They expect a delay. That gives us time to finish this without protest. Back on the Arch, Ren issued a final directive. Activate phase drift. Across the solar system, cloaked Blackwell nodes shifted from static position to live feed. Aegis energy fields began low-level phasing, ready to climb to active containment within minutes. Power readings were masked under decoy utility draws. Not one flare gave them away. Micro-jump vessels, Ren said over secure quantum line, remain dormant. Do not move until the initial burst lands. Then and only then, engage. Each pilot acknowledged without speaking. This would be war, but one built without posturing, without monologues or threats. A war they'd never see coming, until the silence returned their weapons to sender. And only then would Earth speak. Fire 1, Kreven said, voice level as the solar tracking markers settled. The Darien warship Harzeth adjusted orientation with a glide that mimicked indifference. From its forward spire, a single pulse gathered, spherical, yellow-white, swarming with unstable energy fluctuations, then launched toward the satellite hub circling just above Earth's equator. It streaked through the dark like a god's answer to disobedience. And then, it turned. Mid-trajectory, the beam's path warped, subtly at first, like heat shimmer bending over distant pavement. Then violently, it curled like a whip being reeled back by unseen force. On board Harzeth, the impact alert was delayed by exactly 0.6 seconds, just long enough for denial to settle. Then the pulse slammed into the cruiser's own lateral hull, with a screech of reverb not audible, but translated by artificial gravity strain. Shields buckled. A secondary reactor shunted offline. One of the crew lost consciousness from pressure drop before even hitting the floor. What in the core was that? A Darien systems officer stammered, her sensory nodes flaring red across her cranial crown. Playback diagnostics, Kreven snapped. Now, the data reran on their upper prism display. Original trajectory, mid-flight distortion, reverse arc, terminal feedback, their own weapon obeying different laws. That's not interference, Kreven muttered. That's something else entirely. Sorvek stood behind him, one hand wrapped around the edge of the command rail. Fire again. Broader range, full pattern. Let's see if it repeats. Across all 3 remaining ships, forward batteries glowed to life. Missiles armed, ionic beams primed. From a distance the effect resembled the blooming of angry stars. Obsidian Arch watched in total silence. No alerts were raised, no alarms, only a quiet note across Ren's personal feed. Harzeth damaged, unexpected arc behavior confirmed. He said nothing. He didn't need to. The trap had spoken louder than any declaration. A moment later, Sorvek's fleet released its full payload, a storm meant to cripple, dominate, and terrify. It met nothing. And then, everything. The moment the barrage entered the operating radius of Project Aegis, the laws of conventional combat dissolved. Each beam, each missile, every directed burst of radiation or gravitic force, bent, some curved lazily, drifting into orbital nothingness. Others reversed violently, detonating mid-spiral. A handful, with tragically perfect symmetry, turned back and struck the very ports they'd launched from. Inside Velis, Sorvek's ship, a tactical advisor struggled to make sense of the real-time feed. Impact patterns are non-existent, Sorvek interrupted. They're rewriting spatial law. No, Commander, she said. They're reflecting us, like mirrors that choose when to shatter. Sorvek's skin dimmed 2 shades as his body's internal cooling systems kicked into defensive mode. Find the source. They're using solar noise. We can't locate the field's anchor. Kreven barked from the deck. Sensors show our second cruiser has lost all external power. No confirmed strike detected. It's the air, Sorvek whispered. They made it fight back. Then for the first time in the engagement, Earth responded. Not with a barrage, not with a warning, but with formation. From behind Saturn's rings, 20 Earth-built vessels revealed themselves in ghost-like slippage. They didn't blink into view. They emerged as though time had misfiled their location. No engine flares, no attack formations. They arrived in symmetrical silence, then began to move in a circular path around Sorvek's crippled formation. Their hulls absorbed light. Their signatures didn't match any previously catalogued Earth designs. Each ship displayed an emitter pattern unreadable to Darian scans, until one performed a burst drift and reappeared directly behind the flagship. They're maneuvering through localized fold shifts, Kreven said, bewildered. Micro-jump phasing at close range. That's not supposed to be viable. It is, Sorvek said quietly. Just not for primitives. Obsidian Arch's bridge glowed with faint amber. Heads-up displays projected the incoming telemetry. Aegis field integrity stood at 91%. Power draw remained stable. Ren watched each Darian vessel, one stripped of weapons, another leaking coolant from its rear propulsion grid, a third tumbling slowly, having lost all guidance. He issued a short-range pulse. His voice echoed across the enemy's bridge. This is Commander Ren of Earth. You initiated conflict, we deflected it. We have disabled your weapons. We have not killed your crew. A pause, we are still observers. But we are no longer idle. In orbit, Earth's micro-jump ships shifted formation. One by one, they positioned themselves directly above each Darian vessel, just out of engagement range, but close enough to signal you've been mapped. Inside Velis, chaos was giving way to something colder, not fear, not confusion, recognition. They had walked into a conflict they didn't understand. Their advantage had become a weight they couldn't lift. Each ship they brought now floated like a misplaced relic. Orders, Kreven asked, his voice dry. Shut down forward systems. Isolate power to life support, Sorvek ordered. If they haven't targeted our command core yet, they're sending a message. And what message is that? They didn't want to destroy us, Sorvek said. They wanted to correct us. A hiss broke the quiet. The Velis corridor entrance unlocked. Boarding clamps from Earth's forward strike craft had latched without warning. Zero explosive breach, no scorched hull. Just a silent override, bypassing Darian encryption like a lock opened with its own key. Ren stepped through the corridor, with the calm of someone walking into a library. The air inside Velis tasted of iodine and thermal residue. Lights flickered as emergency backup kicked in. The smell, not forbidden terms but one closer to mineralized coolant, carried a sour tang. He passed a technician slumped against a wall, not dead, just defeated. There was no fight. Only the echo of a failed narrative. Ren reached the command deck. Sorvek turned slowly. No words came for a time. Just the silence between two species who now knew the lie that had separated them was no longer believable. Finally Ren spoke. Primitive, he said. A quiet step forward. No, just quiet. Let the record show, Sorvek began. Voice steady, that Earth's use of experimental spatial weaponry constitutes an act of systemic aggression against a Council-recognized delegation. His words echoed through the domed chamber of the Galactic Council Assembly, its golden acoustics designed to carry sound without amplification. Each syllable landed with artificial grace, calculated and rehearsed. Above him, beams of filtered daylight filtered through fractal ceiling panels, scattering patterns across the stone floor like fragmented justice. Delegates shifted in their seats. No one applauded. No one spoke. Sorvek stood alone beneath the central glyph, framed by banners representing over 300 civilizations. The colors behind him, silver flame on black, marked Darien Prime, a world once feared for its influence, now observed. Commander Wren stood to the side, unreadable. He had not removed his uniform. He wore no medal, no sash, no flourish, only muted charcoal fabric, boots matte from dust, posture steady. He said nothing yet. He didn't need to. A heads-up display flickered into position at the Council's request. Projected on the upper wall, a spinning archive seal rotated slowly. Official review was underway. Not only was our vessel assaulted by unconventional gravitational manipulation, Sorvek continued, but Earth failed to declare intent. They responded to diplomacy with technological entrapment. This is a violation of Section 19A of Council Accord structure. He paused, eyes scanning the chamber. Few met his gaze. Furthermore, he added, with a shade of controlled disdain, the Aegis system represents an undisclosed energy platform outside acceptable oversight. There was no submission for review, no transparency. This is subterfuge masquerading as sovereignty. He stepped back. Still, no applause. Wren walked forward, not quickly, not slowly. Each step deliberate. When he reached the center, he waited for the room to quiet. Then he tapped his wristplate. A soft chime rang out. The chamber darkened. The central display shifted. Archive 1175A, Wren said. Earth-Com intercept. Origin, Valris flagship. Timestamp, 4 hours before Darien fleet initiated weapons sequence. The recording played without flourish. Sorvek's voice filled the air again, but not in performance. This time it was private, clipped, candid. We make the offer once more. 30% water extraction, 50% lunar material yield, total orbital jurisdiction. If they decline, we proceed as planned. We'll strip the shell clean. A new voice, Cravens. What if they resist? They won't. They think diplomacy will save them. We act before the Council's procedural arm can react. We finish before they speak. The clip ended. Silence wrapped the chamber in glass-like stillness. Recorded from a tethered observation relay at the edge of Neptune's shadow field, Wren said. Cross-spectrographed against multiple relay nodes. Confirmed authentic. He lifted his head, locking eyes with the Council moderator. The Aegis field didn't initiate violence. It prevented its escalation. Our weapons never fired. Their weapons, however, returned home. Wren turned, gesturing toward the updated plasma display. Diagrams unfolded, angled flight paths, energy arcs traced in gold, spatial folds mapped in blue. The tactical overlay depicted Darien's own volleys folding back into their launch signatures. 4 vessels, 46 disarmed systems, 0 fatalities. Darien's fleet didn't lose because of Earth's aggression. They lost because they assumed we wouldn't learn quickly enough. The room stirred, not with gasps, not with outrage, with realization. Across the chamber, a delegate from Orthus stood, tall, luminescent, limbs marked with pulsating light veins. She raised her voice without ceremony. They came to us last year, she said, offered security in exchange for mineral corridors. When we declined, our communications satellites were disrupted. Our archival core collapsed. We couldn't prove sabotage. Her voice cracked slightly at the end. She sat back down. Then another stood, and another, 6 in total. They threatened us too. They promised protection, demanded obedience. We were told to remain quiet, to avoid making noise that would reach the Council. Each voice came with weight. Then the final reveal. Wren tapped again. Council Archive Relay 442. Private Darien comms embedded within their own command lattice. Logged post-departure from Darien Prime. Another audio feed played. Sorvek's voice again, this time, darker, angrier, certain. They want independence. We give them guidelines. If they reject, they learn. We don't need to destroy Earth. We just need them reminded. When the projection ended, the chamber didn't erupt. It sharpened. The Council moderator stood slowly. His expression, usually carved from stoic stone, showed something different. Disappointment. Sorvek of Darien Prime, he began. Do you deny the recordings? I deny their context. Sorvek snapped. They were not declarations. They were cautionary. Political strategy, nothing more. The moderator turned toward the security wing. Council enforcement. Section 7 invocation. Removal of active delegate. 2 armored officers stepped forward. No, Sorvek barked. You can't. I have tenure. Darien is a pillar, which is why this matters, the moderator said, without raising his tone. A structure must carry weight, not corruption. Sorvek's hands curled inward, but he did not resist. He was escorted from the chamber, not dragged, not silenced, just watched. The doors closed behind him. A single heartbeat passed before the silence broke. Council representatives whispered, not in panic, but in reconsideration. Ren remained at the center, still not triumphant, still not celebrating. We do not ask for retribution, he said. We don't want titles, territories, or tribute. He paused, letting the air settle. What we ask is that no world should be above consequence. That diplomacy be grounded in accountability, not fear. He let the next sentence drop like iron on ice. No more protected predators. The room didn't erupt. It aligned. Delegates nodded, some slowly, others with conviction. The council moderator returned to the platform. There will be review, he said. There will be reform. There must be. And so the tone of the galaxy shifted, not with weapons, but with a verdict. And the sound of laws being rewritten, without needing another war to do it. Contact just snapped. Darien Command has powered their forward shields. Captain Marin's voice crackled over the encrypted line. His cruiser Horizon's Wake stationed above the 3rd orbital ring of Darien Prime. The Council-sanctioned fleet floated in balanced formation, 12 vessels, 6 human-built, the others a mix of Orthian diplomatic monitors, Visari patrol ships, and 1 Shadow-class observer from Tal Bive. Commander Wren stood on the bridge of the vigilant shore, arms folded behind his back, posture unchanged. He studied the heads-up projections rising along the glass wall, velocity pings, reactor spikes, magnetosphere disruptions. They're not retreating, said Lieutenant Juno, narrowing her focus on the plasma lattice. They're aligning. Across the tactical board, 3 Darien warships broke rank and moved to intercept. Not a bluff, not a miscommunication, a calculated act of defiance. Hold position, Wren ordered. No counterfire. Let the field respond. Hostile weapons incoming, Juno confirmed. Tracking energy convergence, 20 seconds to impact. From the surface of Darien Prime, the confrontation looked like stars tearing paths through the sky, plasma trails curling above the clouds. From orbit, the truth revealed itself in an entirely different theater. The first Darien missile reached the Aegis radius and veered sideways with an unnatural twitch, its trajectory bent into a corkscrew, looping backward and striking the very cruiser that fired it. The explosion ripped through the upper decks, peeling the hull like scorched bark. The second ship released a triple-beam barrage. All 3 arcs shimmered, then fractured into angled returns. 2 dissipated harmlessly. The third reversed course with surgical exactness and detonated near their own stabilizer grid, severing artificial gravity anchors. The third vessel lasted longer, but not long enough. It surged forward at full burn, attempting to bypass the field entirely, an act of desperation. Wren watched as its reactor surge collapsed mid-flight, destabilized by proximity distortion. The ship spiraled, lights flickering across its frame like failing stars, before it began falling. Downward, through the upper atmosphere. No defensive array engaged, no counterstrike followed. The silence was surgical. From his seat aboard the Council Observer vessel Herald of Accord, Senior Delegate Hallex watched the event unfold on layered displays. His claws drummed lightly against the armrest. They didn't fire a single round, he muttered. Not one. The Visari captain beside him spoke in hushed awe. This wasn't a battle, this was containment. On Darien Prime, civilians watched the sky burn. The impact of the fallen cruiser shook the horizon. It didn't strike a city, but the shockwave reached the outlying districts, where public sentiment had been fermenting for weeks. What had once been quiet, murmurs became roars. Then, something unplanned happened. Protesters, first in hundreds, then in tens of thousands, gathered outside Darien High Command. They didn't wear colors. They didn't carry weapons. They carried messages. Projected banners lit the air. No more silence. No more Sorvek. no more lies. Military garrisons were ordered to push them back. One unit tried, and then disobeyed. Captain Varick, once a decorated orbital defense officer, turned his battalion's mechs around and powered them down. "We serve to protect Darien," he said to the public feed. Not to be its fist, other units followed. By dusk, all upper-tier transport had ceased. Armored corridors leading to the capital's control spire were deserted. The security code for the defense grid was publicly leaked by a disgruntled technician. Above the atmosphere, Wren observed in silence. "The collapse is accelerating," Juno said, watching city node transmissions shift from command updates to civilian organization efforts. No shots fired on the ground. "Because they fired the only one that mattered," Wren said, "and they missed." Council observers, once neutral, began broadcasting confirmation. "Leadership is dissolving," came a voice from Talivor. "Their internal network has been overwhelmed, not by cyber attack, but by truth." Inside the capital, a convoy of scientists, educators, and civil engineers approached the council relay dome. Their representative, Dralvira, activated the chamber for broadcast. The image filled the bridge of Vigilant Shore in crisp resolution. "To the Galactic Council," she began, "and to the Earth fleet above us, Darien's former high command has vacated its posts. No authority remains in place. What stands now is a unified civilian council. Our goal, stability. Our method, truth. Our plea, peace." Wren opened the channel without ceremony. "You'll have it," he replied. "We accept peace. But not fear." Vera nodded once, not bowed, just acknowledged. Later that cycle, a debrief relay was held aboard Vigilant Shore. Delegates from 5 worlds attended virtually. Data logs showed the orbital interaction in real-time: plotted beams, disrupted energy spirals, fleet rotations that never escalated beyond positioning. "You've taught us something today," said Halleck's, voice crackling slightly through atmospheric static. "That diplomacy doesn't end at words. It begins when you don't use weapons even when you can." "We were never trying to win a war," Wren answered. "We were trying to remove the reason for one." The conversation ended there, not with further praise, not with reward, just understanding. Later that night, from the command balcony, Wren watched Darien Prime's surface. Fires had given way to flickering lights, cities glowing anew with intention rather than surveillance. Ships flew differently now, slower, deliberate, open signal. Broadcasts featured joint efforts for water purification, power redistribution, and emergency medicine. A planet once ruled by shadows now moved under watchful, honest light. No orders needed giving, only silence needed keeping, until it was time to help them rebuild. "Remove the tiered seating," Wren had said 6 months ago, "or we're still just pretending." And so they did. Now in the heart of the Galactic Council spire, the assembly chamber bore no elevation. No delegate sat above another. The room, once organized by influence and resource share, was a ring, equidistant seats. Shared volume, one floor, no throne. Just dialogue. Today's session had just ended. The air held the subtle charge of resolution, conversations tapering, envoys standing in quiet reflection, notes exchanged without protocol fanfare. Along the perimeter, the ambient lighting pulsed faintly as the filtration systems adjusted to multi-atmosphere cycles. Commander Wren stood at the rear of the chamber, arms relaxed, watching a diplomat from Rethrenthur share tea with a Darien civil administrator, both smiling, both speaking in a hybrid dialect, developed just weeks prior. Progress didn't march. It unfolded. Outside the windowed curve of the council dome, ships from 20 systems moved in carefully choreographed lanes. None bore territorial markers. Each vessel carried the black and gold insignia of the Joint Defense Pact, Earth's own emblem at its heart, now a shared sigil of protection and restraint. A soft chime echoed from Wren's wrist. He tapped the laser dial. A projection unfurled in the air, an ethics oversight report, bearing the seal of Talivor. Quantum reflection field, status monitored, ethics verified, shared updates approved. He closed the report with a flick. Earth's greatest defense had not been buried. It had been submitted, voluntarily. Reviewed, shared, studied under watchful neutral eyes, not as a weapon. As a safeguard. That was the condition for keeping it alive. The same condition Earth had once demanded of the galaxy. Down in the atrium, a group of newly appointed peace cadets walked past the hanging crystal fountain. Their uniforms mixed planetary traditions, Cillian teal sashes, Orthian low boots, Daryon utility clasps. A human cadet led them through the gates, offering greetings in 6 dialects. They followed without hesitation. Change didn't arrive with declarations. It embedded itself in process. On the council archives level, a line of entries blinked across a translucent panel as archivists logged status amendments. One new entry glowed brighter than the rest. Territory, Sol 3. Earth classification update, from Developmental Observer, Strategic Sovereign, full member. Council note, behavioral integrity, confirmed during live hostile conflict. Status earned, not appointed. The clerk who logged it was from Charon. She didn't pause, she simply nodded, and moved to the next update. Meanwhile, in orbit around what had once been a penal mining outpost under Daryon control, Earth's vigilant shore had completed its 5th deployment of clean water modules. Engineers from Visari and Earth cooperated side by side, installing the filtration coils. No hierarchy, no division of labor. A child from the settlement handed one of the workers a fruit carved into the shape of their flag. Above them, drones from Earth's agricultural division prepared to seed the drylands with early growth crops. Irrigation paths, mapped by both local climate data and Earth's AI algorithms, wove across the valley floor like veins restoring circulation. At the language center in Iris District, former Daryon teachers and Earth linguists taught combined history through storytelling. No slogans, no memorials to defeat, just shared timelines. Inside the council lounge, Ren approached the low projection table. Ambassadors rose slightly, offering gestures of recognition. He didn't linger. He placed a single report onto the center panel and activated the readout. Council Joint Logistics Summary, Quarter 2, we've stabilized 5 former colonies, integrated multilingual education, returned 3 systems to civilian governance, defense readiness status maintained, no military activation in 60 days. The council moderator turned. And Earth's response to this progress. We remain, Ren replied, available, but never central. Support exists best when it doesn't require spotlight. You've become quite the diplomat, Commander. Ren almost smiled. I learned restraint from enemies. I learned patience from allies. As the chamber cleared, he remained. Outside the dome, the stars were sharper tonight, blinking across the atmospheric veil without interference. No smoke trails. No debris or damage to hide. The Joint Defense Pact had grown into a coordinated rhythm. No command from above. Each system rotated leadership responsibilities. Earth trained, mentored, but never dominated. Former Daryon officers were among the highest-rated peacekeepers. Their shift in posture had not come through surrender, but reflection. Ren moved through the long hallway that circled the council complex. The walls here didn't display war trophies. Instead, they offered engravings, quotes from all member worlds. One caught his eye. An inscription from Tala 4, to speak softly is not weakness. It is the discipline to wait until your voice is needed most. He paused, not in pride, in alignment. Minutes later, he entered the Joint Coordination Wing. Officers from 20 species worked at desks designed to adjust for multiple limb types, atmospheres, and optical preferences. No voice raised above another, no directive given twice. Captain Junis from the river cities of Korin approached. Commander, should we increase the training bandwidth for lunar response teams? Ren considered it. Only if they request. Let initiative grow where there's room. Junis nodded once and returned to his station. Across the room, a young translator recorded a report from a Daryon logistics officer. The words were clipped but respectful. Cooperation wasn't flawless, but it was real. As Ren exited, he passed the observation deck where new cadets looked down over the coordinated movement of ships. One asked, "Which one is Earth's flagship?" The instructor replied, "That depends on the day." Ren didn't correct them. Earth didn't need monuments. It had become the standard by refusing to impose one. Later, as he walked beneath the quiet hush of star-filtered corridors, he paused once more before the edge of the transparent walkway. Below, shuttles moved in crossing arcs. Above, beacons glimmered in soft blue. A junior aide approached him. "Sir," she said, The moderator would like a closing statement for the seasonal address. He didn't hesitate. Use this, he said. Tell them, we didn't change the galaxy by speaking louder, we changed it by not yelling when we could have. She nodded and turned away. And Ren stayed a moment longer. No bindings, no restraints, he's not going anywhere, the warden said. Ren didn't acknowledge him. He stepped through the final security door alone, boots landing quietly against the textured polymer floor of the high-security wing. The corridor was washed in white-blue ambient lighting, deliberately neutral, neither comforting nor cruel. Sorvek's containment room waited at the far end. No guards flanked it. There were no weapons aimed at the former diplomat, no shackles around his limbs, just layered containment fields, invisibly woven between floor plates and wall seams. The energy grid knew where he stood. If he moved too far from center, the air would harden like liquid glass. He didn't test it anymore. Inside, Sorvek sat in a chair that had no backrest. His posture remained upright, but slower now, bones stiffened by gravity he couldn't override, skin dulled to a mottled gray-green. Ren stepped through. No alert sounded. No one followed. Sorvek turned slightly, eyes taking a moment longer than usual to focus. I thought the council was done sending speeches, he said, voice drier than stone left too long in the wind. I'm not here to speak, Ren answered. They stood facing one another across the silent room, divided only by memory. You led a revolution, Sorvek said after a pause. Without needing one. That's harder. Ren didn't respond immediately. He took a slow breath, not to calm himself, but to observe the silence between them. The kind of stillness that only existed when consequence had already arrived. Sorvek gestured to the small window at the corner of the cell. It wasn't barred, just engineered to reveal orbit without distortion. They pass by now, he muttered. Every species, not circling to protect, not to watch, just aligned. Outside, in slow arcs across Dirion Prime's upper orbit, ships of every configuration flew in coordinated lines, curling along orbital belts, sharing lanes. Human vessels no longer guarded, but participated. They used to part when I entered a chamber, Sorvek continued. Even the ones who hated me, because fear grants shape, and shape holds power. It also collapses under scrutiny, Ren said. That landed. Sorvek didn't flinch, but his hands curled slightly over his knees. I thought you'd want glory, he admitted. After what we tried to take, a flag planted in our halls, maybe a parade through the ashes. We don't plant flags in corpses, Ren said. There's no honor in proving what others already fear. Just confirmation, and restraint, earns no legacy. Legacy wasn't the goal. Ren stepped closer, until only a few strides separated them. He didn't raise his voice. He never had to. You made the same mistake everyone does, he said. You saw a new voice in the room, and thought it would shout to be heard. You prepared for a scream. What you got was silence, but the kind that holds weight. You hid too much behind quiet, Sorvek muttered. No, we let the silence outlive the threat. A long breath filled the space. Sorvek stood slowly. He didn't rise like a predator anymore. He moved like someone learning how gravity works for the first time. I underestimated you. Ren nodded once. Everyone does, he said, until it's too late. Neither spoke after that. Ren turned toward the exit. No curtain fell. No guards escorted him out. No triumphant line hovered in the air. Just footsteps, measured, unhurried, final. Outside the containment wing, the council's orbital corridor curved downward toward the upper observation deck. Ren walked alone along the paneled walkway, its lights shifting hues to adjust for exterior starlight glare. The dome ahead provided a full radius view of the council's central operations ring. Ships moved with gentle synchrony. No escorts, no barriers, no weapons drawn. Vessels once considered enemies now offloaded supplies to their former rivals. Earth's own cadets stood beside Urathian tacticians, laughing over navigation errors. Tail-of-Wire engineers shared water reclamation blueprints with Darien settlers. Words carried across space through hybrid languages, some only days old, yet already fluent in peace. Further along the deck, a group of council members passed by without bowing, without formality, just nods exchanged, out of respect earned, not demanded. One delegate slowed as Ren passed. "We rewrote the protocol book," she said softly. Ren shook his head. "No," he replied. "We reminded everyone where the first page started." When he returned to the coordination wing, reports from 5 different systems awaited him, none urgent, all cooperative. The ethics board logged another successful energy-sharing initiative using Aegis-compatible relay tech. A civilian colony requested assistance, not military aid, but agricultural support. Peace, it turned out, required more logistics than war ever had. Ren closed the report files one by one. Then he walked back to the window, where it all had started, where Earth's status had once been observer only, seated in the back of the room with borrowed time. Now they didn't stand alone. They stood among, and that, more than any weapon, was what reshaped the galaxy. Not by conquest, not by retaliation, not even by revolution, just by refusing to raise a fist until every other path had been exhausted. And when they finally acted, they didn't shout, they didn't broadcast, they simply showed what silence looks like when it knows it's already won.